Thank you, Judge, and respected officers of the court for allowing me to speak. I have been Donna Adelson's husband for over 50 years. My wife sacrificed everything so that she could pour her heart and soul into our children, our grandchildren, and our marriage. This summer was our 54th wedding anniversary, and I had to spend it without her, hand in mind. She has done nothing wrong, and yet is being punished for a crime that she did not commit. I thought we lived in a different kind of world, but I guess I was wrong. I have listened, watched, and sat in the courtroom for the entire trial, and I could not help but scream in my mind by the witnesses that were brought forward by the prosecution who told outright lies. I didn't know that you could lie in a courtroom, but apparently you can. Danny's parents contend that they have never seen their grandchild. But for years they say they've never seen her. But Wendy has shared with me pictures and videos and letters from their visits. They have suffered immensely at the loss of their son, but they also contend to tell lies to the court about our grandchildren. Donna has always been a loving and caring wife and is innocent of the charges. A biased judge and jury were influenced by years of one-sided news pieces and social media.
Doctor, Miss Wolford, this has nothing to do with the character of the defendant.
May I just one moment, please?
Go ahead.
All right, thanks you for letting me continue. Donna did not participate in the heinous acts that she was convicted of doing. You are sending an innocent woman to prison. You have taken my wife and you have taken my life as well. And for what? This is not justice. It is vengeance, and it is wrong.
Thank you for letting me speak. My son-in-law, Dan Markell, was a fine and decent man. He was well-educated and passionate about his career. He was a good son-in-law, but more importantly, he was a caring and loving father. On July 18th, 2014, his car was followed, leaving his home. It should have been just like any other day, an ordinary day in the life of Ben and Lincoln's father, but it wasn't. He didn't know when he left his boys off at daycare that would be the last time he would see them, and the last time they would see him. He didn't know when he went to the gym afterwards that would be the last time he would exercise. And he didn't know when he drove home that his life would end within minutes. Danny wasn't just being followed, he was being hunted. He was brutally murdered in broad daylight, sitting in his car, in his garage, by vicious killers. I cannot imagine the terror he felt when he saw a gun pointed at him through the window of his car. I cannot conceive of his heroic efforts to stay alive during the hours after the attack. Danny died in the early morning hours of July 19th. His death is a loss to his children, his parents, his sister, all of us in his family, his friends, his colleagues in the legal community, and to his students at FSU Law School. Danny's boys each have a photo of themselves with their Abba, their dad, beside their beds. They grew up kissing the framed photo and saying, "Good night, Abba, I love you." But pictures and memories are all they have, because cruel, cold-hearted people took him from all of us who loved him. My heart was broken when Danny died. My grandsons were going to grow up without the father who loved them. I wondered, how could we help these boys through this trauma? It was then that my husband and I knew that the best way to honor Danny's memory would be to share with these children an abundance of love, the love that Danny would have given them if he were alive. It is interesting how the state can't make up its mind about who is what they call the, quote, mastermind behind this murder. In both of Catherine Magbanaw's trials, the state claimed she was the mastermind behind Danny's murder. In my son Charlie Adelson's trial, they claimed he was the mastermind. And now in my trial, they claimed that I, this grandma, was the mastermind behind the murder. I had no idea that other people planned to cut Danny's life short. And the people who did this are exactly where they deserve to be. But I had no knowledge that this horrible, evil act was going to take place. If I had become aware of this plan before Danny was murdered, I would have stopped it. With not one iota of actual evidence, the state convinced a Tallahassee jury that I solicited and conspired with other people to have Danny killed. Where is the evidence prior to the murder? The evidence beyond a reasonable doubt that the state needed to prove their case. Where is the evidence before July 18th, 2014 at 10:50 in the morning?
Before you continue, Mrs. Adelson, as it relates to this statement, is the defense trying to re-argue the trial?
No, Judge, just give me Adelson an opportunity to be heard.
Mrs. Adelson, you certainly can continue. However, the court can take into consideration the utter lack of remorse that you are displaying. Please proceed if you desire to do so.
Where is the evidence before July 18th, 2014 at 10:50 a.m. that revealed that I had any involvement in this vile and horrific act? Where is the solicitation and conspiracy evidence? The state needed to show that there was evidence before the murder to convict me. The state couldn't show that because there wasn't any evidence. They were trying an innocent person. It makes you wonder if the jurors were sleeping when the state had Sergeant Corbett on the stand for hours. Their own star witness testified that my phone was never, I repeat, never at my son's house on the night of the murder. The state's theory that my husband and I dropped off money to my son was blown out of the water by their own witness. And yet, the state continued to push that story, that lie of the so-called money drop to the jury through the remainder of the trial. And the jury bought into it, hook, line, and sinker. Reasonable doubt. Many months ago, my attorneys filed a motion for a change of venue. An expert witness testified that Tallahassee had been barraged with over 9 years of negative social media, printed news, television news, and podcast publicity about my family. He explained to the court, both with evidence and demonstratives, that for me to receive a fair trial, it needed to be held in any of the researched and designated areas in the state of Florida other than Tallahassee. All I wanted was a level playing field, but the court wanted the trial here, in the hotbed of Tallahassee. I sat through 3 days of jury selection. 180 potential jurors were asked if they had developed an opinion in my case. Those that answered yes also added, I believe she is guilty. Not one person, not one, said, I think she may be innocent. That should have been a clue to the court to grant our motion for a change of venue, but the court denied the motion. One of my jurors admitted during jury selection that she had background information concerning what one of the state's witnesses would be testifying about. Why was she allowed to be on my jury?
What moment?
Another juror.
Mrs. Fulford,
Oh, I didn't hear you.
Mr. Zellman, again, this has nothing to do with elocution of any sort. This is a raising of grievances, which are properly given to the appellate court. What does any of this have to do with sentencing?
Just one moment.
Please.
What happened to Danny is unforgivable. But I am an innocent woman convicted of this terrible crime without evidence. Danny was a brilliant legal scholar. He would have been appalled at the total lack of justice that went on during my trial. He would have been embarrassed to have his name associated with any of it. There are two crimes here. The first was Danny being viciously murdered. The second one is taking my life, the life of an innocent woman. Convicting me should not be retribution for Danny's death. That is not justice for Dan. I've always respected the law. I've never gotten a parking ticket, but I'm going to prison for a murder I did not commit. I do intend to file an appeal so that hopefully I have the opportunity to be given a fair trial outside of Tallahassee. 11 years ago, Danny was murdered and taken from all of us who loved him. For the past 9.5 years, the state has broadcast to the world, including Danny's parents and sister, that I hired hitmen to kill him. Never in a million years would I have wanted Danny to be harmed or killed, nor could I ever do something that would leave these two small boys to grow up without him. I love these boys more than life itself. This is a lifetime of loss for these children. They didn't deserve this. His family didn't deserve this. Danny didn't deserve this. And so, as I appear before you today, Your Honor, I promise you with my whole heart, I swear to you on my life, I was not involved in any way with Danny's murder. I was not.
What we just witnessed was hard to watch, not only because of the pain in the courtroom, but because of what it revealed about Harvey and Donna's inner world. For years, Harvey has been the quiet one, rarely speaking publicly, rarely showing emotion. So when he finally did during the sentencing, his anger caught many by surprise. It was sharp, defensive, and deeply bitter to me. He aimed that anger at everyone, the jury, the judge, the prosecutors, and even the legal system itself, as if the entire world had turned against him and his wife. Harvey's bitterness and Donna's detachment may come from the same place. Deep shame that's too threatening for them to admit. As a therapist, I often see this pattern in relationships built on codependence and control. One partner leaves with dominance, the other with avoidance. The result is silence, resentment, and denial. What makes this moment even more painful is that the Markel family's grief, the loss of a son and father, was minimized and dismissed. This is the tragedy behind the tragedy. When self-protection becomes more important than compassion, humanity is lost in the process. So So what does this tell us about Harvey and Donna's marriage? About the quiet man beside the woman whose influence seemed to shape an entire family. Harvey's silence, even through years of chaos, may have not been just personality. It may have been a learned survival skill. When you live with someone who is controlling or emotionally dominant, silence can become the safest option. It's how you keep the peace. But over time, that silence starts to cause tremendous damage. It tells the other person, you can act however you want. You can do whatever you want to do, and I'll never stop you, and I will always be here to defend you. I'm not saying Harvey didn't love Donna, but love that avoids conflict often turns into enabling a person. Every time he stayed quiet to keep things calm, the dysfunction deepened. That pattern likely carried through the entire family. The children learned that Donna's mood ruled the household and that dad will not step in to prevent or stop it. One partner dominates while the other withdraws to maintain balance. It might keep the home running on the surface, but underneath it usually builds resentment and fear. In families like this, it's common for the dominant partner, in this case, I suspect Donna, to develop traits that can look narcissistic, which include a strong need to be right, a deep fear of losing control, and an inability to handle shame or criticism. I want to be very clear again. I am not diagnosing Donna, but these traits fit a pattern I often see as a therapist when someone's identity depends on feeling powerful or needed. Narcissism actually exists on a spectrum. On the mild end, it can look like confidence or ambition. But as it grows more extreme, it becomes fragile. The person's self-worth depends entirely on control, admiration, or validation. Any challenge to this feels like an attack. That's when you see defensiveness, blame shifting, and emotional manipulation. What we don't always realize is that narcissistic traits can pair with features of borderline personality, which includes emotional swings, fear of abandonment, and intense reactions to rejection. Again, I'm not diagnosing anyone here, but when these traits combine with power, money, and influence, they can create a storm that consumes everyone around it. Now think of what Harvey's role may have been in this storm. His quiet acceptance may have helped feed the storm. When a partner constantly accommodates, it reinforces the other person's need for control. That dynamic can last decades, especially in older generations where men were often taught to provide, keep the peace at home, avoid confrontation, and let the wife handle the family. So when Harvey finally spoke at the sentencing, after years of silence, it was like a dam broke. The anger we saw may have been years of frustration, guilt, fear, and helplessness spilling out all at once. But I suspect it wasn't just anger at the system. It might have been anger at himself for not speaking up sooner, for losing everything, for watching a lifetime of denial collapse in a single moment. But sadly, his words didn't come across as grief or accountability. They came across as blame. And that's often what happens when someone has never learned how to sit with emotional pain without deflecting it. Instead of saying, this is tragic and we are so very sorry, the pain gets twisted into, we are being attacked. Therapy often begins for people like Harvey with learning that silence isn't the same as peace, and that love without boundaries probably isn't love at all. If there's one thing Harvey Adelson's story teaches us, it's that silence has power, but not always the kind we hope for. Many people stay quiet to keep the peace. They tell themselves, I don't want to argue, or it's not worth the fight. But what we sometimes forget is that silence doesn't make conflict disappear. It just hides it. And what stays hidden grows heavier and deeper over time. In Harvey's case, years of keeping the peace may have allowed unhealthy patterns and behaviors to thrive. Maybe he thought he was protecting his family, but sometimes love without truth turns into enabling someone. When we refuse to set limits or speak up, the person we love never has to face themselves or hold themselves accountable. And that can cause even greater harm. If you have ever found yourself staying quiet just to keep someone else calm, ask yourself, what that silence is costing you. Are you protecting peace or are you protecting dysfunction? Healing doesn't come from blame. It comes from awareness. We can learn from Harvey's story that boundaries, even when painful, are acts of love. They protect not only us, but the people we care about from becoming lost in their own unchecked patterns and behaviors. I am Miss D. Thank you for listening, for learning, and for reflecting with me. And I am so ever humbled and grateful for all the support and the new subscribers. Thank you all so much. I will see you in the next episode. Bye-bye and take care.